Boy, when I tell you the battle of censorship is hard to deal with sometimes. Sometimes it just really is that. It feels like you're just a routine at this point. Just kind of waking up, getting your morning coffee, getting your toast ready, you're pouring in your sugar that you think is sugar, but it's actually cracked so you get through the damn day. And then you start calling up Visa and MasterCard to get them to understand, hey, censorship isn't cool, please revert changes. And then they ultimately hang up in your face because they're getting tired of you. Well, that is basically the battle that we've been kind of going through when it comes down to this whole mess of a madness, right? And good, they should be annoyed and they should be getting tired of all these calls because at the end of the day, we want the changes to calm the hell down. We want censorship to be rolled the hell back and not necessarily be shitted on for every company to deal with and everything like that, taking away our entertainment and taking away the things that we actually like. Like, no shit, you're gonna get called on all the dang time. That's just gonna be how it is. And for the employees that's getting tired of it, tell your bosses how annoyed you are, and maybe some changes can actually be done. It's just as simple as that. As changes come through and things get reverted back, we'll calm the hell down. But until that time comes, ain't nobody's gonna calm the hell down. We're not gonna necessarily bother with that sort of thing. We're just gonna continue just going ahead and do what we gotta do until things are changed up for us for the better, as it should be. We are starting to see just a tiny bit of good about all this, or at least on the highest end of levels as far as we have seen with the administration and in terms of how they kind of respond to, you know, how the UK's been going about their whole safety act and whatever. At least the president is slightly aware, or at least kind of know what's going on, and is not effing with, you know, other countries trying to force censorship on American countries, or at least American countries, American citizens and companies and stuff like that. So that's good. That's a good sign. However, that doesn't mean the battle is won or it's GG's, it's over with now, because it's still happening. As companies still now implement things like an age verification or an ID, that still just shows you, yeah, the battle still needs to be fought. The battle is still something that we need to absolutely crash in on, because things still have to change, right? One good little thing does not necessarily mean that, oh, everything's assured, everything is going to be okay, and all that sort of stuff too, right? Because even if it's okay on that level, there is still things, at least in America, state-wise, that, you know, there is problems that we have. There are still people that's very much happy and ready to just start banning and censoring stuff if they absolutely can, and that's just not a good thing. So there is always going to be some level of censorship that you should pay attention to, should fight against, and not necessarily be effing with when it comes down to it. But the good thing is, a lot of people are very much staying strong. They are very much understanding what is at stake right now, with your rights basically being taken away, of freedom of expression, the freedom of speech, really all that stuff, all your freedoms is basically at risk at this moment in time, and no one wants to basically have their stuff taken away. So it's good to see that people are actually, you know, for once, not necessarily just quitting or throwing in the towel because it's too much or it's too hard or whatever, unless you just want to basically be a whipped and chained boy by literally anybody and everything, then, you know, go ahead, let your freedoms be taken away. But as far as I'm concerned, we're going to still talk about it, still, you know, yap about it in whatever way we need to make sure that people is very much, one, aware of the situation, and two, at the very same time, understanding that this is bigger than, you know, some adult content in games, or, you know, bigger than our entertainment as a whole. It's also just our rights just in general as to what we can enjoy, what we can create, and pretty much everything in the wazoo of the timeline that you can pretty much take a gander at. Because for the last 2 days, there has been lots of different things that has nothing to do with protecting kids, and it's just having companies kind of installing different rules for literally no type of reason whatsoever. Like Spotify, for example, now you have to do a bit of age verification or some type of verification in general to honestly have like a Spotify account to keep it going. If you don't do it, in the UK at least, you're gonna get your account deleted. Why is this a thing? How does this, how does the Spotify like absolutely protect children? What could you possibly be protecting children for? At that point, what does that have to do with anything? Like, where's the logic in that? And it's not even just that.
Guess there's only one thing I can do to regain your love. Xbox.
Which, once again, how the hell does that like affect anything, right? I don't really understand. Now, somebody could be definitely a smartass and basically say, well, what about game chats and people that talk in the Xbox game chats and all that sort of stuff, and could be trying to be a predator or something like that. To keep it very much a stack, yes, that is a thing that happens, but in the wider eyes of the government, dang well that's not what they care about. Dang well that's not what they're here for, and that's just ultimately how it is. They're not just going to be here for that type of thing, and ultimately that's just not what they're wanting to deal with. Like in the high level of a scale, that's not what it is. Plus, if situations like that happen 9 times out of 10, and if you find out that that's what's happening to your kid or whatever, I'm pretty sure police will get involved, and I'm pretty sure there will be some measures to be taken care of, and things of the sort like that, right? And pretty sure if a parent is actually being a parent, first of all, that wouldn't happen in the first damn place, and second of all, you will probably put some belt to ass to that child to make sure that that shit don't happen again. Don't talk to strangers. That is literally the first lesson you learn out the damn womb. But I digress. But even now, with all this verification going on, even YouTube is now going to start implementing things like that with their glorious, totally not bad AI system that they love to implement. Basically, kind of monitoring what you watch, monitoring what type of content you interact with and whatever, and will determine whether or not you are a child based off of that, which is very much a terrible idea. One, because let's be real, YouTube's algorithm, just like its AI, a lot of the time can be really dumb. Let's just be real. YouTube people know this. Everybody knows this. Their algorithm and their AI is very much not the greatest thing on the planet. It doesn't really benefit to the highest standard of a lot of things. It barely does its job, if I'm going to be absolutely honest, right? If that was the case, we would see more people that is at lower levels at least get some type of help every now and again, versus where that just doesn't really happen, and that's a bit of a shame. Where you get accounts like mine who basically wants to talk about the news, try to bring it up to people, can't necessarily do that because for whatever reason it's just not getting any traction, which is a bit sad because more people should know about things like this. But when it comes down to it though, it just, even on a regular average scale of it, for your average casual person that's not a content creator, that's still a bad thing. Because what if you just, I don't know, want to watch Yu-Gi-Oh videos, or you are very much interested in, things that can be aimed for children, but you're also interested in, and then ultimately you end up getting like your account banned because, oh, you've been watching way too much My Little Pony, bro. You've been watching way too much MLP, and then ultimately you get cooked by that. Like, bitch, do you not know how many adults like MLP? Do you understand that? Do you know how many people like Sonic or anything like that? You know how many people have gooned to these characters, and you want to call them out for being, thinking that their account is on a lower age level? Like, are you serious? And that's just how it is. That's the potential bad thing that could very much happen here. And again, why the YouTube AI is just goofy as hell, if I'm gonna be honest, at times, because sometimes it just doesn't know what the hell you're doing, right? And sometimes it just doesn't know how to compute things properly, and it's looking like a Nefa losing her damn memories in like the recent Genshin quest. That's kind of how it is, sir. It is so like genuinely ridiculous that all these companies, all these governments, and all this other stuff really want to implement all these sort of rules that was not an issue before, but they're just trying to make it an issue and trying to speed run it without any sort of like pushback or anything like that. But ultimately, they're gonna get that pushback. They're just going to, right? And I saw a nice post about YouTube's situation and honestly how people could like maybe fight back against it, and it's basically just give the same level of energy to the MasterCard and Visa, give that jump to YouTube as well. Honestly, if there was ever a time where you wanted certain changes to kind of happen, especially to some platform like YouTube and how it is, this could potentially also be the time for that too. Like, I know a lot of people are probably sick of how YouTube is kind of being done in different ways and all that sort of stuff too, and that people will call them out for that and just kind of do the same thing. I wouldn't be too mad at that, right? Because at the end of the day, it's not like anybody wants to call them or threaten them or anything like that. It's just at the end of the day, hey, could you make this change? This is kind of annoying. Thank you very much. And that's literally all you have to do. Like, that's literally the reason why, the plan of calling on MasterCard and Visa is working. Because ain't nobody trying to be, super threatening. You'll probably get those people that is going to be, threatening and all that sort of stuff. But majority of people are not going to be threatening, or they're going to be on that sort of timing. They're just going to ask the same questions and the same type of mentality that they have for Visa and MasterCard and shift that over to something else. That being said, though, I do hope that this doesn't breed a whole bunch of stupidity by doing something like this in terms of what is going on right now, though. Because I know a lot of people is like, oh, we could just bully the hell out of whoever we want to, company-wise, and that's just GG's, right? I hope this doesn't breed a whole bunch of stupidity where it's like, oh, it's one minuscule thing we don't like, let's bombard said company and just be on set on that type of time and everything when it comes down to something like that. Because I know how people can be. People can very much take things too far too quick, and then there's also times where people can very much, I guess like thinking that they are in control of something, but in realistically they're really not, and then they just lose the vision of what is actually being fought for, right? That's the one thing that does bother me, or at least could be a very scary thing regarding the future of how this whole thing could go, is if they forget what they're doing this for. And hopefully that doesn't happen, but it can always happen, because again, the individual can be smart, but people as a self, it's kind of, they can kind of be really, really dumb when it comes down to it. Right now they're not acting dumb, but they could be in the future. So there's always that pros and cons when it comes down to stuff like this. But overall, though, it is nice to see that these companies are actually starting to feel the effects of what people are trying to tell them. Again, the gaming side of the community online and the anime side of the community online, it's the two damn spaces you do not mess with. It is the two spaces that is literally going to be up your ass until somebody actually does something. Anime fans been feeling this junk for years. Gaming fans have been really feeling this junk for years as well. But I would say it's really started to kick your ass back in 2019, especially again, as I said before, years ago. Sinner and Kagura got, banned, or at least not banned, but censored and took out certain modes and stuff like that too. And it started from there, at least the timeline of what I cared about, right? Because at the end of the day, when it first started, most people just didn't care. Most people were just like, oh, it's just a Uner game, or just a game with a bunch of, weird stuff in it and simping and all that sort of stuff. And that's kind of what it was. It's always been that as the start. It's always been things like a Senran Kagura. It's been things like, what Steam has released when it comes down to it, like they're all these type of weird NSFW games. It's always been something like itch.io when it comes down to other things as well. It's always been the adult content that people will sit here and say, oh, I care absolutely nothing for this, and that's perfectly fine, but then go as to be like, oh, it's not a big deal if it gets thrown into the gutter or something like that. Never think it's always that simple, because it's usually not. And again, people in the anime space, we've been calling this shit out for years. We've been said this shit for literal years. Lolicons have been saying this, John, for literal years. That if something goes down when it comes down to their side, everybody else should look out. And then look what they did. They went after furries. And then after that, they went after games. And then they started to go after horror games. And now we're just in the mess where everybody else is trying to, put up all these verifications and stuff. It is never going to be a simple process of, oh, it's just somebody removing certain things off the site and all that sort of stuff, and that's just how it is. It's never going to be something that simple like that. You already know there's a chain reaction heading that way, and people have been saying something for years. And when it comes down to it, if people are saying something for that long and actually know what they're talking about, and you choose to ignore it, what ends up happening is this exact situation that we were trying to avoid in the first damn place. If everybody was on the board the first time, whether you like lollies or not, or whether you like furry content or not, or whatever the hell, anime content in general or not, this would not have gotten this bad. It would not have gotten this bad if people literally just start, realizing, hey, I don't like this thing, but I also don't need it to go away because, it would affect a lot of other things. And now people are kind of learning this the hard way, and now we have to fight back hard as hell just to showcase, hey, don't take shit like this away from us, because at the end of the day, it's needed. And for multiple different reasons. And again, it's not just for, good gratification of adult content. It's also because some stories rely on that. Some stories is very much using that to tell an important lesson or whatever the hell. And again, it's never just that simple. I'm not gonna go into the whole thing, but you get the dang point. But essentially, never give up, keep calling these people until something is done. Very much always keep promoting, not to be for censorship and basically not standing for it at all. And just do what you have to do. Because at the end of the day, they'll very much be happy to take away every right that you got. And if you ain't fighting for that shit, if you ain't really promoting that shit against them, if you're not necessarily somebody that's, ready to box these damn individuals when it comes down to your words, then you're cooked. They're going to take everything you got, and that's something you don't want to live with. But that's again something I really want to say, just to kind of rally up the troops, I suppose, when it comes down to it. So hopefully you did enjoy. If you did, be sure to like, share, subscribe. I'll come back a little bit later today to kind of talk about some storytelling stuff and some other things that irritated me with Genshin, and not really not really Genshin itself, but just like how people perceive Genshin as a whole. Because there's something I really got to talk about that really irritated me last night. But yeah, see you a bit later. This has been your boy Jay. Sign off. Have a blessed day.